Thank you so much for being here at our annual membership meeting. This is the first time we've done this since January of 2020, believe it or not. I want to start off by thanking Opus One for this incredible venue in which to host. It's a very special place to be here. The hospitality that's always shown by this team, Michael Silacci, Brittany Tuttle, Diana Ochoa, is always spectacular, and we really appreciate working with all of you to put things like this together. We'll be enjoying some excellent hors d'oeuvres after this presentation, prepared by Executive Chef Sean Koenig and Guest Chef Sarah Heller. That's going to be fantastic, along with some wines in the back, but we've got some fun things to get to first. So let's see. That's me. I'm Caleb Mosley, Executive Director of the Napa Valley Grapegrowers. And I'm, again, so excited to see you all here today. And then all the millions of viewers out on live stream, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. One of the great things about modern technology is we're able to get the message out to quite a few more people and then record this. So we have an idea of what we were thinking at this point in time when we look back years from now. We couldn't do anything that we want to do this year in terms of our programming and education without the support of our generous sponsors. So I want to start off by thanking both Mark Polito and Donna Walker from Polito Walker Estate Vineyards. They're our 50th anniversary golden sponsor. Thank you both for your generosity wherever you are. The both of you truly go above and beyond for our organization, which on behalf of our entire valley, we say thank you for your efforts. Also would like to thank Allied Propane Service, American Egg Credit, Silverado Farming Company, thank you, Pete, Walsh Vineyards, Paradigm Winery, Ren, thank you, ETS Laboratories, Agri-Analysis, Allen, thank you, Bartelt Engineering, Bright Event Rentals, Boat Markle Davis and Company, Clark Vineyard Management, Napa Printing and Design, Napa Select Vineyard Services, thank you, Jason Ray, Sunbelt Reynolds, Wilbur Ellis, welcome back, thank you. CSP Labs, Lino, Napa Valley Petroleum, Recology Organics, Rosasco Law Group, and we're welcoming back just this morning Turrentine Brokerage. Thank you to Steve Fredericks and your entire team for your support. Quick note on how important sponsorship is for us this year. Our grant funding is completely up in the air right now. So we tend to get and rely upon some really generous grants that help us put on our things like Ahead of the Curve, Rootstock, and they're all, it's not green, it's not red, it's yellow, and somewhere in between. We don't really know if they're moving forward or not. So sponsors, thank you so much. This is allowing us to continue to push forward and keep doing what we like to do, which is educate, advocate, inform, and bring people together. So big thank you for the sponsors yet again. All right, as I fumble away here. So members of the heart of the organization, thank you all so much for being here today to celebrate and to kick off the year with us. As I fumble around, there we go. A little bit about who we are. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We transitioned to a 501c3 status in 2017. We believe in stewardship of the land. It's a shared responsibility, and every day we provide education and advocacy for our industry and community, because the health of the vineyards means a thriving Napa Valley. We're celebrating 50 years this year. As many of you know, we've got a fun campaign out and about where we're celebrating different topics each month. I wanted to say, too, that I've been a proud volunteer in this organization since I landed here in 2011 when I took my first job in Napa, working for Bart and Daphne Arajo, who I think are here. There they are. Thank you guys for letting me spend so much time volunteering with the organization back that many years ago. It's landed me in a pretty unique position, full circle, but thank you. And to all of you that allow your staff members or folks in your organization to help volunteer, thank you. It means a lot, and this organization is only as powerful as the folks that come and help us get along the way. So all the insights and all the people that show up and help us, thank you. So what do we do? What do we do? Education, advocacy, networking, and next generation. Those are kind of our four core pillars that we're focusing on. Education, I really don't need to go into too much detail with the folks in the room here and those on live stream. We do numerous events that try and elevate our farming quality, whether it be organic farming, whether it be sustainable farming, whatever it is, we want to make sure that you have the tools and the education you need to excel at your particular practice. Advocacy, we're advocating through education is kind of our core principle. We like to make sure that everyone that has a stake in what we do here in the Valley understands that we are the experts in the room. We'd like to have at least the opportunity to engage in conversations to make sure that folks know that there are implications to the rules, the regulations, legislation, all that fun stuff. So with our committees and the folks in the room here, thanks to those of you that have been pivotal in that effort. Networking, yes, networking is important. As you are all here and you all know, we try to provide networking opportunities for you all, so we're not all just scattered around in the vineyards. We get opportunities to share some wine together, share stories, talk about how harvest went, complain. We're growers, we complain about things, or at least I did. And the next generation, again, pivotal to the future of this valley, is making sure that our future growers and interns all the way to, folks in the tasting room, folks in hospitality, Paso Adelante, which has a table here today. I invite you to go check out their table, engage with them. Jorge, you're here. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. And Amelia, thank you. Really important part of our organization is making sure that there's a place for folks that are new to the industry, so they can help network, engage, and be the next people sitting in this room in 10, 20 years. So how can you engage? Well, it's as easy as downloading a podcast these days. I feel like everyone says that, right? That they all have a podcast. You should tune into my podcast. But we really have a podcast. It's called Grown in Napa Valley. It's produced by our very own program director, Emily Hegarty. She does an outstanding job of keeping me somewhat on track. Conversations are really, really fun. Ted, you and I just did a really wonderful segment that will come out, I believe, in April. We're trying to target this year on a lot of different topics that correspond with our celebration, our 50th celebration. So if you haven't heard it, tune in. There's some technical stuff. There's some fun stuff. And then, of course, I always like to have a glass with friends. So the second segment in each episode is called Glass with a Grower. So I get free wine. It's great. Yeah. Emails are another great way to stay engaged with what we're up to. Carolyn Fuchek and the PR and marketing team work on making sure that you all have the most relevant information in your inbox at least once a week. So our grower bulletin is a great way to stay up to speed with everything that we're doing. And then events are also great. Big thanks to our our events director, Quincy Scott. She always does a fantastic job curating these events for us. And if you've ever been to any of them, you know that they're always done top notch is an understatement. Moving on this year for 2025, we will be hosting our Sustainable Vineyard Practices Seminar on the 26th at Napa Valley College. I want to thank them for their generosity in terms of hosting us. They give us a great deal on location, and it's really great because they've got nice audio-visual setup. We'll be talking about irrigation. We'll be talking about groundwater. So anybody interested in groundwater here, probably, maybe? We're going to have some folks from ERA Economics help us with their presentation on what folks are thinking about in terms of what's going on with groundwater and how they're monitoring use, all those fun things. Ahead of the curve, technology is finally here to stay, I think. And those of you in the room that have been farming for a while know that certain companies have come and gone over the years, and technology is here for a minute and then gone. And sometimes it feels like it's shoved down your throat and trying to solve problems that you don't really have. I think we've crossed a barrier where technology is here to stay, and it's here and actually helping us make more informed decisions and farm more efficiently and just in the nick of time based on what you all know about the farming landscape right now. So we will be focusing on technology, dipping our toes into AI a little bit. I don't know if you can do that, but anyway, it's a weird analogy. Moving on, the end of the year, we host an annual conference we call Rootstock. Last year, we focused on red blotch and leaf roll 3, pretty devastating diseases that we're still battling to this day. The key takeaways from 2024 Rootstock were, at least in my opinion, that drought cycles play a major impact in how red blotch is being spread throughout the valley, which I didn't know before that meeting. And then also, those of you on the winemaking front, go find some Petit Verdot, because apparently co-fermenting PV with Cabernet that has red blotch is a big win. So that's a pro tip. Couple more things. We've got our annual celebration hosted at Foley Johnson Winery. Thank you to the Foley family for hosting us for our 50th annual celebration. That's going to be a big deal. Chloe Ty, our communications director, has been engaging with our membership in such a wonderful way. So we're really hoping this is a bright, shining light for our year this year, coming together and celebrating 50 years of accomplishments. Paso Adelante Growers Guild, formerly called these social clubs. We've kind of rebranded it. But it's a really excellent way to get folks together in a place where they had not had access to. Chris Hyde, you hosted one for us last year. It was super cool. Larry and you and your mom sharing stories. And it was just a great way to bridge to the next generation, making sure that there's still people that understand the history and can bring it all the way through to what we're doing moving forward. So keep your eyes peeled for the Growers Guild. And then seasonal vineyard walks for hospitality. And Michael, thank you. You've hosted one in the past here at Opus. It was fantastic. And where's John Tyre? I think he's here. Engleneck, thank you so much for hosting us last year. Keep your eyes peeled. Your hospitality folks need to know what we're doing in the vineyard. So those of you that have tasting rooms that want your hospitality, your communicators to know what we're doing, please keep your eyes peeled for these seasonal vineyard walks, because it's an outstanding way to engage with some of the best viticulturists and vineyard managers on the planet. Anybody heard of Harvest Stomp? So this effort is led by Sonia DeLuca, who's here too. Where's Sonia? There's Sonia. Hi. Sonia has orchestrated Harvest Stomp since its inception, and we've got a big one planned in Yountville, which will be hosted by Morgan and Kendall over there at Napa Wine Co. So keep that date on your calendar, August 23rd. Keep your eyes peeled for the e-auction, which we've really put a lot of effort into lately, and are doing a great job at curating some incredible gifts for people, and try and spread the word out beyond the county boundaries, because the more people that know about Harvest Stomp, again, with the grant issues that we have and the uncertainty in the future, these kinds of this kind of support is just pivotal for our future. So thank you to those of you who have supported and partied with us at Harvest Stomp, and we can't wait for this year. Two more things. Okay, afternoon vineyards coming up. There's locations. I think Bettinelli's hosting. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. And I was supposed to write these down too. Sorry. Fire Tree, Bettinelli, Chimney Rock, and Nickel and Nickel. Thank you all. This is where we get to engage. We partner with the Napa Valley Vintners to bring folks in the community out to different sites and talk about various topics that are relevant to people. It's our way to bridge to the community. And then we just started, a year and a half ago now, tabling at the farmers markets in Napa, and we're going to be heading up to St. Helena this year as well for a few markets. Don't let me have a pickup truck the day before the farmers market, because I tend to bring too much stuff. I get too excited and I want to show everybody like everything. So last time it was, I had 2 barrels. We brought an entire grapevine. We had so much fun talking about pruning. So come by and visit. We'll give you a heads up in terms of when we're there, but we're trying to engage with the community as well, because as you all know in this room, if the community doesn't understand how important farming is to our entire county, we're in trouble. So we put on our smiley faces and we go out and we talk about what we love to do, which is farming here in Napa. So we've been working on a project since 2017 that we're extremely excited to formally announce to the membership. Many of you in the room probably know about this, but in 2017, we actually purchased a property right across Highway 29 from where we're standing right now. The former Oakville pump location, Steve Moles, helped us find and secure the property along with some incredible support from the Foley family. And we actually own, I believe it's 3.5 acres right across the street. We have been working tirelessly at fundraising to construct a permanent home for our organization and for the Napa Valley Farm Worker Foundation, and probably one of the most incredible places you could find in the Napa Valley. There's so much excitement around this. We have been working tirelessly. We're 65% of the way there to construct the Napa Valley Center for Grape-Growing and Farm Worker Education. We're going to have a table in the back with floor plans so you can see the classrooms that we have planned. We have a podcasting studio planned inside, which I'm really excited about. But we're aiming to build a hub and a center for education and community in the heart of Napa. It couldn't come at a more important time where agriculture and vineyards are, in a sense, in a tough place. And we're hoping that this is going to be a totem, a monument to agriculture from here on out. The dream I have is that people will drive by or pull into the parking lot and say, hey, which winery is this? I want to come tasting. And we say, it's not a winery. This is the Center for Viticultural Excellence. This is a Center for Farm Work Education. Let me tell you about why you're here. It's because this is one of the best places on the planet to grow wine grapes. So as we continue along to try and secure the remaining funds, we've raised over $8.5 million to get to our $12.9 million goal, which is incredible. There are a few folks in the room today that I want to thank for their contributions, including the Foley family, Paradigm Wines, Ren Harris, thank you so much. Opus One, Michael, thank you. Garden Daphne Araujo, Bill Nemberever and Ginger, thank you. And Silverado Farming, along with Mark and Dono, have made some really generous contributions to this campaign. And we would not be standing at 65% right now without their help. So thank you to all of you for your help. Our board of directors is 100% in support, both by pounding the pavement, writing emails, and calling you all, but also financially. And we're asking each of you in the room today to learn more about the project. At our table in the back, we've got our team from Pound Management, and our contractor, Nordby Construction here. Tony, thank you. Sean and Katie, thank you. They can answer all the questions. They've been partnering with us since we started this project all that long ago. It's incredibly exciting, and this is a pretty cool moment that I get to stand here and tell you all about what we've been doing in the background for quite a long time now. So, God, isn't that cool? We'll have puppies inside and everything too. Okay, I think I got a couple more things to say, then I'm going to pass it along. I'm going over. So, in thinking about this opportunity to speak to you all for a moment, and those of you on live stream too, I know, Quincy, I'm going to stop soon. These are challenging times. We've spent a lot of time analyzing where we missed marketing to the next generation, how we didn't see the new temperance movement coming, all these different challenges and headwinds that are in front of us. But when you really take a step back and you really try and get to the core of what we're trying to do when we grow these incredible grapes and make these incredible wines, is we're trying to communicate joy. There's joy in every glass of wine. There's joy in every moment that you have to come together to enjoy it. There's joy in remembering the vintage, whether it was a great one or whether it was a really difficult one. Actually, there's always more to talk about with the challenging ones. But wine captures this better than anything else, at least in my opinion, that you could be putting in your glass and enjoying next to a really amazing meal. Wine and food are culture. Wine and food tie us to the land. Wine and food tie us to past generations and future generations. Wine and food are incredibly important to our culture. And I think that might be something that we may be missing in trying to overanalyze all of our problems or why High Noon is selling so well. Wine is something that nothing else can match. And you all in this room know that. That's why you're here. And I believe that we collectively have the power as grape growers with boots on our feet to tell that story more genuinely than almost anyone can. So keep joy alive. This is a fun business. We're all here because it's fun. And I'm so honored to pass the mic along to two people that translate joy better than anyone I've ever met, and Thomas Keller and Michael Silacci. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Caleb. Just a quick comment on Caleb's comments. He calls it wine and food. I call it food and wine. It's okay. Just wanted to correct that.
So in 2003, someone invited me to the French Laundry to celebrate my 50th birthday. And I was amazed I'd been before, but I really started paying attention to how teams work and how they function, the flow of work groups. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Chris Lynch just arrived. He's probably here at the beginning, but I just saw him. Chris Lynch is our CEO and is an amazing supporter of all things viticulture and winemaking and French Laundry. Anyway, so I was at dinner there, and I was just really taking in how the team worked. And there were times, Thomas, when I thought that, our chef, when I thought that they were like the characters in Beauty and the Beast, like the candlestick holder. You know, they'd come to life and serve you, and then go into the woodwork. And then if they see something off, they come in and correct it right away. And I felt that what you do is a parallel universe to what we do. And so I invited our cellar team to go to the French Laundry for lunch. And the one thing I got out of it was I got them to agree that we are in a parallel universe, that excellence and perfection are important pursuits, absolute wine quality, absolute food quality, in the reverse order, absolute food quality, absolute wine quality. And what I did get out of them was when I asked them if the servers at the French Laundry were working in our cellar, would they wear polo shirts or T-shirts? And they all changed to polo shirts. So, but I'm going to start off with a question, taking you back a little bit. What was your favorite toy as a child?
Well, I grew up, my father was in the Marine Corps, so G.I. Joe was my favorite toy as a kid. I was sorry to say that. I'm not really sorry to say that because we were children. And we had big G.I. Joes back then. Now I think they're really small, but that was it. And you got with all the different things that you could buy for the G.I. Joe, it was the boys' Barbie doll.
Speaking of your mother now, what was your favorite dish, or what is your favorite dish your mother would prepare for you?
It's easy. That's easy to answer. And actually, one of the food magazines asked me to do a recipe of my mother's favorite dish. So I call it Betty was my mother's name. Betty's spaghetti. And what she would do, she would chop up some onions. Now, mind you, my mother didn't cook a whole lot, right? And this was something that she would prepare for us before she rushed off to work, because she worked in the evenings. But she would chop up some onions and saute those in Wesson oil or whatever. She'd be boiling some spaghetti on the side. She would mix the spaghetti, after the spaghetti was cooked, she would drain it, mix it with the onions, and pour cottage cheese over it. And so that was what it was. And it was okay. I mean, when you're a kid, you have no idea, right? That's not necessarily a real dish. That's what your mother made. That's what you did. That's what you ate. It became very familiar. And so when I started to think about that, after the question was asked about this dish, I started to realize that she probably read Red Book, right? Or Women's Journal, or one of those magazines from the 50s and 60s. And, it was this wonderful dish that the writer had in some part of Italy. Spaghetti with shallots and ricotta cheese. And of course, if you couldn't find shallots, you used onions. That was the option in the recipe. And if you couldn't find ricotta cheese, you just replaced it with cottage cheese. And I'm sure that's something, I speculate, but I'm sure that's kind of where this dish came from. And so when I did the dish for the magazine, of course, I used what I thought was the proper ingredients for the dish, and still it became Betty's spaghetti. So that was my favorite dish.
Very good. I'll have to try some. Could you please describe the beginning and the steps along the way in your journey to Napa Valley?
Really?
Please.
How long do you have? Well, let's start. Well, so, I've been very fortunate, lucky, blessed, whatever adjective you want to use in my career. There are things I've done that I never thought I would do, ever. And for that, I've been very fortunate. And, I'll give a lot of people most of the credit for my success. I was in the right place at the right time. But I think starting, how did I get to Napa Valley? Was I failed at a restaurant in New York City, which I thought I was going to be at for the rest of my life. And At that time, I was forced or offered an opportunity to come to Los Angeles, where there was a hotel owner, a guy named Bill Wilkinson, who actually started Campton Place. So when you think of boutique hotels, you've all heard that phrase. Well, Bill Wilkinson operated the first boutique hotel in the world in Campton Place. And he brought me to LA, and quickly after that, he sold the hotel, which was just devastating to me. And a German company came in, and within 6 months, I was fired. Again, out of a job, but in a very strange location, Los Angeles. If any of you been there, you probably know what I mean. But getting to Napa Valley was through my girlfriend at the time, who was representing some wineries here in Napa as a wine broker in Los Angeles, and we would come up once a month or so whenever I could get away, which was every day because I wasn't working, so I had nothing to do. And one day we were driving up, and I don't know if you know who Jonathan Waxman is. Jonathan Waxman was opening a restaurant called Table 29. It's where Don Giovanni is today. I've known Jonathan. I knew Jonathan for quite some time. I said, let's stop and see Jonathan just to say hello. I walked into the kitchen. It was still under construction. Long story short, he said, you should go to Yountville. There's this restaurant that I know is for sale. It's called the French Laundry. And lo and behold, we went in there. They were closed. I walked around the property. The stars lit up. It was fate. It was destiny. Whatever you want to call it. I just felt I was in the right place. And I went back home. Of course, I had no money. I had no job. And I called Don and Sally Schmidt and said, I want to buy your restaurant. And they said, okay. And I came up to Napa, and we negotiated over a tongue sandwich that Sally had made for me in their home, which was still today the best tongue sandwich I've ever had. And we talked for quite some time, and we talked about the price. We agreed on the price, and then they said, okay, now go home and raise the money. I had no idea how I was going to do that. But again, making a long story short, you think about the assets that you have at the time, and my biggest asset at that time was ignorance. Ignorance. Had I known that somebody said to me, Thomas, this is what you're going to have to do to buy the French Laundry, I said, no way. It would happen. It was the little successes every single day. It took me over 18 months to finally put the project together and raise enough money to buy the restaurant. And Don and Sally Schmidt, I was blessed to have them as mentors, as friends, just beautiful, wonderful, generous, gracious individuals who believed in me over a period of 18 months to buy their restaurant. So that's long story short. That's kind of how I got here.
It's very important to realize that failure is such an important ingredient to success.
Always is.
Always.
Most important.
And then you throw in a little ignorance and you got it made. Who are some other mentors you had in the kitchen and in your life?
Well, I have to go back to my mother, and I think a lot of you would also agree that either your mother or your father, had an enormous influence on who you are and what you do. And certainly my mother gave me this incredible sense of awareness, this incredible work ethic, dedication, commitment, and again, not most importantly, a sense of awareness of the world around you was really important. And so I really, my mother was, the person I am is because of my mother. My brother Joseph, who always wanted to be a cook, and I couldn't care less about cooking at the time. But my mother gave me a job in the kitchen, and ultimately ended up in the head cook's position. He mentored me on beginning, making holidays, roasting prime rib, those types of things. Roland Henning, in July 1977. I still hadn't decided that this was going to be my profession. It was just kind of a thing to do. I did it well. I could travel. I was in Narragansett, Rhode Island, and I worked at a beach club for this chef who I knew of from South Florida, where I lived at the time. He hired me as the family cook. So I got in at 8 o'clock in the morning. I made lunch and dinner for the family. The family included not just the dining room team, not just the kitchen team, but it's a beach club. So there was the maids, there was the tennis pro, there was the lifeguards, whoever. And it seemed like everybody was really happy with the job I was doing. So Henning came to me one day and said, you know, he wanted to you know, congratulate me on the job I was doing because he hadn't heard any complaints from any of the staff for a long time. I said, thank you. And he asked me a question. I'm not sure why he asked me this question. He asked me, he said, Thomas, do you know why cooks cook? I mean, I'm basically just barely 21. I'm trying to think of some clever answer because I have no idea why cooks cook. And he, you know, after stumbling on some ridiculous answer, he said, no, cooks cook to nurture people. We nurture people. And as soon as he said that word, we nurture people, I realized that I was a nurturer and I wanted to make people happy. And that was it for me. I decided, that was the day I decided to become a professional chef. And Henning was French. Henning cooked, you know, more or less came from fine dining. He was from Lyon, France. And I wanted to be exactly like him. So he became that mentor. Here in Napa, years later, right, this is now up to 92, you know, I have to give credit to Bob Long. I think of all of you may know Bob Long. You know, Bob became a friend early on because of my girlfriend who brokered his wine in LA. And Bob helped me so much at that period of time in enlightening me on business, on accounting and finances. But more importantly, he invited me to Piemonte. I was broke, so he said he would take care of it. He invited me with another gentleman who was another winemaker here in Napa Valley. And I wrote a brief, just about 10 pages, what the French Laundry was going to be in my mind's eye. And I'm nervous. I give it to both these guys who are accomplished, you know, businessmen, you know, successful. And I gave them both a copy of the brief. I said, let me know what you think. You know, they went upstairs to bed. I couldn't sleep that night. I wake up the next morning. I'm waiting for them to come down. They come down. Michael says to me, I said, what'd you think? Michael said, horrible idea. Nobody's going to look. It's too expensive. People in Napa Valley don't want that. Forget about it. I was crushed. I looked to Bob, and Bob said, great idea. I said, you're my man. So little things like, do you think, I mean, these small things that happen in your life that other people, right, you know, influence you. It's just extraordinary. You know, I always talk about the significance of one decision. And, you know, of course, there's lots of decisions that we make every single day. You chose those shoes today. Wasn't really a significant decision. You decided to wear those shoes. But there are a lot of things that you've decided in your life that have been significant. Yeah, important. There are other people who have made significant decisions that have affected you. You know, Bob Long, Don and Sally Schmidt. There are people in my life that made decisions that benefited me in enormous ways. So,
And in addition to nurturing people through the food you prepare, you're nurturing people through mentorship. Could you tell us someone that you were mentoring who actually taught you a lesson?
Something that I was mentoring that taught me a lesson. Well, I think there's probably dozens of people who teach me things every single day. Just to talk about mentorship for a minute, get to that question. So one of the things that we think about in our restaurants, in our business, is making sure that we hire the right person. Now, when I was a young cook, it didn't matter, right? You walked into a restaurant, you knocked on the door. If they needed somebody, they hired you. And then they put you in the station for 2 weeks, right? It's okay, you're going to need the poissonnier, right? You're going to spend 2 weeks with that poissonnier to teach you what to do, and then you're on your own. It's kind of like when you're children, and your parents know that. I mean, when your children are just learning how to swim, you put the floaties on their arms, right? And then they're, and they take them out when take them off when they're like 16 years old because you're terrified they're gonna. But imagine that you took those floaties off 2 weeks later, and the kid drowned, and you said, well, it was his fault, right? He didn't learn what he needed to learn. That's kind of what I grew up in terms of the condition that I was in. So hiring the right person is critical, making sure that not only is he the right person or she's the right person, but they think that you are the right person. Because, it's a two-way street, that kind of commitment. So hiring the right person and training, right? And I just said about the floaties, training goes on for a long time. It's not 2 weeks. I mean, it goes on for the entire career that we're together. So mentorship is going both ways, right? In that respect, they're asking me questions to mentor them, but then I'm asking them questions to help me help them mentor me. And so it's two ways. That training is critical, and training goes on for the entire period of time. All of you, I think, are continuing training in your profession, right? This doesn't stop. And then the last part of that is, so we've hired the right person, we're training the right person, and we need to mentor them. And mentoring them is part of their job, right? But also mentoring them in life and in their profession in certain ways. And if you do those three things correctly, what do you think happens? Anybody have any idea? Hiring, training, and mentoring at the highest level. The person is better than you are. Because if they're not better than you are, you've done a shitty job. Just remember that. And I'm proud to say that every young chef that leaves my restaurant is better than I am. And that's easy to say because they are. They've had better training, they have better education, they have better environment, they have better tools, they have better ingredients. Everything that we do is for that betterment of each generation. And they have to be better than we are.
And they had you. And I have a couple of people that I mentor that were much better than I do. So I know exactly how you feel. Yeah. Could you tell us about Mentor and the Bocuse store?
Sure. So Mentor was a foundation that was started in 2008 on behest of a gentleman named Paul Bocuse. Anybody know who Paul Bocuse is? Good. Because if you don't know who Paul Bocuse is, there's a picture of him right there on my phone. I don't get a new phone until I get Paul Bocuse on it. He's the guy, he's the icon. He was our mentor in so many different ways. I was very lucky to get to know him. And the U.S. was competing in the Bocuse store since 1987. Now, this was a competition that Paul started in 1987 to bring the culinary world together. 24 countries around the world are competing in Lyon every 2 years, just like the Olympics. You win gold, silver, or bronze. But for some reason, the American can't really establish a foundation or support group to fund the U.S. team. So we failed every year. Every 2 years we failed. Now, long story short, not long story, but sidebar, Jerome Bocuse, Paul's son, went to school here at the Culinary Institute of America. Well, not here, but in New York at the Culinary Institute of America, which, as you can imagine, Paul Bocuse, most famous chef in the world, sending his son to America for education. You don't think that created a furor in France? That did. But he believed in America. And I listened to Paul several times, and every time I think about this, I get a little bit emotional, and the hair stands up on the back of my head. But Paul would tell me that his love for America, and the reason that he loved America so much is that during World War II, he was wounded, taken to a U.S. Army field hospital where he had a blood transfusion. He always say to me, I have American blood running through my veins. Think about that. I mean, he flies the American flag above his restaurant. Every day, I go to Auberge. I was just there, last month, and there's the American flag, get up, proud, waving in the wind. I mean, it's just fantastic. And he also knows that America helped save his country. So he was vested in America, and he wanted us to do well at the Bocuse store, his competition. And so he called his son Jerome, he probably fall of 2008, and said, Jerome, you got to get your shit together. I'm tired of this. You guys got to put some effort into finding the right teams to come to compete in Lyon. So Jerome said, okay. Jerome calls Daniel Boulud, another chef, well known from Lyon. Both these guys are French, as you can imagine, right? You got Jerome Bocuse and Daniel Boulud. And so they're having a conversation, and I get a phone call from Daniel and Jerome, like, we need you to be the president of the U.S. team. You're an American. I'm like, well, okay, whatever, right? We learned that we cannot say no the day you walk into a kitchen. And Daniel said, Paul's going to call you and ask you to be the president for the U.S. team. I said, okay. 10 minutes later, I got a call from Paul Bocuse asking me to be the president of the U.S. team. Oui, chef, whatever you need. And that was it. That was the reason that Bocuse store started USA. It later became Mentor because we realized that we had more opportunities, right, for culinary excellence in America. And so in 2012, it went from Bocuse d'Or USA to Mentor, and we broadened our horizons in education, in training, in grant programs, in congresses, different ways we wanted to bring the profession together, and it was a great opportunity. We planned this battle that we would get on the podium. Little did we know how difficult that was. In 2009, we failed. I shouldn't say, well, I don't want to say failed. We didn't get on the podium. 2009, 2011, 2013, nothing. We could not find anybody who wanted to compete in 2015 until Philip Tessier, I think many of you know, who now is the chef de cuisine at Press here, who worked for me for over a decade. He came to me and said, I want to try out for the Bocuse d'Or. He ultimately was the captain of the U.S. team. We won silver. I stood in the kitchen with Paul Bocuse on the morning after. There's a tradition, and I said, Chef, we finally have been able to achieve what we've promised you, is silver. And he looked at me and said, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? So I want gold. So 2015, 2017, we came back. Matthew Peters, another chef at the French Laundry and per se, won gold. And I got to stand up with Paul in that kitchen that day, that Thursday morning after the competition, and let him know that we won gold. But I just want to back up for a minute because it was a really important part of the story. The Monday before competition, we have our sponsorship dinner at Auberge, which is Paul's restaurant. And Paul wasn't feeling well that night, and he lives in the restaurant. He always tells me the only thing that changed in my bedroom since I was born is the sheets on my bed. But so Danielle said, let's go down and see him and say hello. I had an American scarf around my neck. We went down to see him, and he was in bed. I gave him the scarf. I said, Chef, we're coming back on Thursday with gold. When I arrived that Thursday morning after winning gold, Paul was standing in the front door of his restaurant with the American scarf around his neck. And you don't think that is a moment of extraordinary pride, not just in who we were, who we are, our team, but our country. And we were able to fulfill our promise to Paul, and he passed away the year later. So we did it. Anyway, sorry. I got a little long-winded there, but it's all right.
Caleb mentioned that we're perhaps in a little bit of a funk right now with temperance movement and visitation down, etc. What do you think we should do to bring people back to bring people to Napa, to taste our wines, and to have these food and wine experiences?
Temperance, I haven't heard that in a long time. I mean, there was a documentary on when I was a kid talking about the temperance in the 20s. That's a good word, though, and really apropos. So, and I don't know if anybody saw the Wall Street Journal yesterday on, once again, echoing what the Surgeon General said last month about cancer, and this had to do with women and breast cancer. More than 3 drinks a week, you go from 11% contracting breast cancer with 3 drinks a week. If you go to 5 drinks a week, it gets up to 15%, and then just escalates from there. So it's terrifying when you start to think about it. But this has been going on for a long time. 40 other countries in the world have already declared alcohol to cause cancer, and so this is the reality that we're living in, and we have to realize that a moderation has to be key, right? So moderation is a good thing. And Julia Child said that, 50, 60 years ago, everything in moderation, it'll be fine. I truly believe in that. So I don't want to get terrified about cancer, because number one, I love wine. I enjoy wine. I always have. I amassed, I've been collecting wine my entire career, and hoping one day to start to drink it. So I don't want to think that to get cancer from it, but it's difficult. So we are dealing with that, right? But there's nothing we can do about that. Continue to make good wine. On the other side, I think in Napa, and I've been looking at this for the past couple of years because traffic is down. Is traffic down in Napa Valley? Right? I mean, it's just a 10% last year for us, 10% down from the year before. So we started seeing this about 2 or 3 years ago, right? The lack of just traffic in Napa. So you start thinking, why is that? Well, number one, it's just become an expensive place to come. I mean, we are elite. If we were athletes, we'd be elite athletes. I mean, the wineries, the winemakers, the growers, the restaurants, right? We are elite, but we cannot become elitist. There's a difference there, right? You can be elite and still have a sense of accommodation of people, right? This is something that I think we need to really rethink. When I came to Napa Valley in 1986, for the first time, I can go to any winery along 29 and go in and get and learn about wine, right? The tastings were free back then. The education process was very important. So whether you wanted to learn about wine, you came to Napa Valley. If you were already somewhat familiar with wine, you came to Napa Valley. If you were an expert in wine, you came to Napa Valley. So every level of opportunity for people to come learn about wine, experience wine was really important. I think we've lost that a little bit. I mean, now you have to make an appointment to go to a winery, and it costs you, I don't know, how much does it cost to taste wine here?
I don't know.
But I think that has been a little bit of a problem. Hotels are really expensive these days. I mean, yeah, when I came here, I think my hotel was like $250, but I knew that was 45 years ago. It's still, right? It's a really expensive place to come. So how do we get the young generations to come back to start experiencing wine, learning about wine? That accessibility has to be there. We have to want them to come back. We have to embrace them in ways that we don't do that anymore. From what I see, we don't do that anymore. I think that's an important part of this learning process. So invite young people back. Let them taste the wine. Whatever you need to do to become more accessible to that next generation, because we're already struggling with the next generation, right? We're all smoking weed, you know that, right? And eating gummies. So now we're competing with that section, and it's a different mentality for what is it, the Gen Z? Is that generation now that we're dealing with? But I still see Gen Zs coming to the restaurant. And so we've been able to maintain, and this is the functionality, which is quite expensive, as you all know. But we want to be accessible to them in any way we possibly can. And that is not about price, but that's about the experience that we give them. And experience is such an important part of our lives today. And Gen Zs are all about the experience. And so making sure that the experience we give them is genuine, is gracious. Caleb talked about joy. I mean, just think about happiness, all these different things that we crave as individuals in our society, this sense of community, and be able to display that to the younger generations because they want it, they crave it, they love it. I see them in the restaurant. Yeah, I mean, they can't necessarily afford a lot of their wines any longer, but they want to taste them, they want to learn about them. We'll do small pairings for them. And give them the opportunity to experience wines and experience Napa Valley, experience our restaurants in the way that we all intend it to be, which is just this beautiful, loving, accessible community that we just embrace all people, right? No matter what their socioeconomic situation is.
Experiences, I agree with you. The experience is the ultimate goal, but you really have to have a hospitality team that balances out the quality of food in the kitchen. Could you talk a little bit about Laura Cunningham?
Yeah. I think Laura is one of the most extraordinary women in my profession, in our profession. You have to realize, Laura came to work at the French Laundry at a very young age, and she, she was in St. Helena, right? She grew up in St. Helena, and I think it was one of the Schmitz girls. I think Terry may have been the same age as Laura. So, we're friends. Laura had already known the house and knew the French Laundry and all about it. And she came to work for me at a very young age and quickly excelled and became the general manager of the restaurant. I think she was 26 years old. Running what would become one of the keystone restaurants in this country. As a woman, she redefined fine dining service. With a fine dining service back in the day was very rigid. There was not a lot of conversation, not a back and forth. Laura casualized fine dining, and that is what we have today, not just in our country but around the world. Is this casualization of fine dining and making it more fun, more accessible to people, not as intimidating to people. And I think sometimes, wine can be intimidating to people. Food can be intimidating to people. So we have to make sure that we're taking time with them so that they can feel a sense of freedom about having this dinner around this wonderful food, this wonderful wine. Laura did that, and so I wouldn't be here today. The French Laundry wouldn't be what it is today. I think that profession wouldn't be what it is today with somebody like, or not with somebody, but without Laura Cunningham. She is the cornerstone of that restaurant, and what's become TKRG, Thomas Keller Restaurant Group.
Thank you. I saw Bardarajo earlier. I think he's sitting back here, and I remember listening to him one time talking about Napa Valley wines, how it's very easy to make powerful wines in Napa Valley, but it's very difficult to make wines that express power and finesse. And I think finesse is a key word in your restaurant.
Yeah.
Could you touch on that in a sense of urgency?
Yeah, we talk about finesse, and we're good at what we do, right? We accept that. We have an elite group in our restaurants, certainly at the French Laundry and per se, in the kitchen, in the dining room, the wine teams, the gardeners, everybody, around us is always trying to elevate their game every single day. Search for perfection without ever achieving it, because once you achieve it, you could do even better. It's that search for the perfection, which is always and you've all heard these things before. I'm not the first person to say them. But finesse is, when I started to realize what finesse was about, I realized that, I'm one of a group of chefs, right, who have been blessed, been lucky, been fortunate to reach the level that I have reached. But there are a lot of other chefs that are as good or better than I am who have not done that. And so I think when I think about that, I always use an analogy of baseball. When I think of the 630 baseball pitchers, every year, and there are like 2 or 3 of them who actually throw a curveball that no one can hit. Little Ryan was one of those guys. And they all threw the curveball kind of the same, but what did Ryan do a little different? There was a little finesse that he applied to that pitch that made it unhittable for people. And I think that's what we do in life when we're faced with these moments in time where we're trying to excel, and we have other people around us that we know are as good. How do we get that little bit better? And for me, it's all about finesse. Sense of urgency is another word that we like a lot. And sense of urgency for me began at a restaurant in New York City, the Pillow Lounge, which was at the Westbury Hotel. Actually, Daniel Boulud was the sous chef there at the time. A gentleman named Patrice Baudet was the chef de cuisine. This was a time in the early 80s when our culinary culture just started to take off in America again. We can talk about culinary culture later, but that's an interesting topic. I realized that if I wanted to progress in my career, I needed to learn what I need to know today to do that. So I would have a sense of urgency working at my station. I was the poissonnier. I wanted to finish early, right? And in order to finish early, I had to work faster, harder, better. That sense of urgency drove me because I wanted to go spend some time with the saucier, right? And learn what he did. So when the chef said, I need a saucier, I'm ready, right? So prepare yourself for your future before you get there. This idea of preparation and sense of urgency. And so that's where sense of urgency came for me. But for you, what does sense of urgency feel like? What do you think that feels like? If you had to describe it as a feeling. Imagine yourself on the freeway. You have to use the restroom. And you look at the sign as you go down the freeway, it says 50 miles. That's the sense of urgency.
Two more questions. One, has anyone ever come to the French Laundry and simply wanted a hamburger?
No, but y'all remember it's Jason Paulmeyer, right? Lovely man. Fun. I mean, a lot of fun, Jason was. He came to me one day and he said, and he challenged me to make him a tasting menu out of Spam, which we did. Right, he had an 11-course Spam tasting menu one afternoon for lunch. And I think he was half joking, but we took it seriously. Like, we're going to blow this guy up, and so we did a whole Spam tasting menu for Jason. But a hamburger, hamburgers are easy. I mean, here's the thing, right? At our level anyway, and I don't understand what's happening in with the younger generation. I was in Las Vegas for an event just this past weekend. And I went to one of the new restaurants there from LA. It's an Italian restaurant. And, they talk about how much they're committed to the community, to their farmers, to their fishermen, all these different things. And the boss says, but you can't change anything, right? You can't substitute anything. No modifications. And thinking like, I mean, really? I mean, you can't, if I don't like the Swiss chard here, you can't give me the spinach that's over here. No modifications. So what kind of hospitality is that, right? So at our level, I always say, if you want something, ask for it. If you want a hamburger, it's not hard for us to make a hamburger. We can do that. I always say, if somebody comes to my restaurant and they want cornflakes, and I go down the street and Ranch Mark and buy a box of cornflakes, and they have cornflakes, and they leave the restaurant and go, wow, Keller really gave me cornflakes. I'm amazing. And I'm sure that guy would tell that story for the rest of his life, right? So why is ego? Why is there any ego involved in what we do, right? I mean, kids come to the restaurant all the time, and it's like the parents like, we make pasta with no green stuff. Like, that's no problem, right? I mean, it's just boiled pasta with butter and Parmesan cheese on it. How hard is it? We had hockey players that want fried chicken every time they come. Run down to ad hoc. We send somebody on the ad hoc, we'll bring back the whole fried chicken. They go, really, chef, this is amazing. I mean, this stuff, what we do is really easy. It's not a difficult thing as long as you want to be open to what people need, what people want. You're flexible. You want to give them joy in their lives. That's really easy. It's not hard.
What's next?
I think I have to go to work. I have 2 parts of the day. I have my business part of the day, which started today at 8:30, which will be finished in about half an hour, about 20 minutes or so like that, I think. And then I'll go to work. Because where I find the greatest joy in my life is in the kitchen. I get to be with my team, both in the dining room and the kitchen, the wine team. I get to greet our guests. I get to shake hands. I get to sign books. I get to take pictures. This is the point in my career where I'm no longer cooking, but I found other ways to make an impact. I'm in the kitchen with them every single night when I'm here. We're tasting food. We're looking at things together. We're smiling. We're having a good time. Our guests are in the kitchens with us. It's a great time of life. So what's next? It's, I am an addict. I have to say, I'm addicted to opening restaurants. There's no other way to put it. Dr. Tim Ryan, who was the president of the CIA, he just graduated because he wouldn't say he retired. He just graduated this past year as president. He's become the chancellor of that school. And I told him, I was probably about 55 or 56. I said, Tim, we were driving somewhere together. I said, Tim, when I turn 60, if I'm up in your restaurant, make sure you take a gun and shoot me. I'm almost 70 now. We're still opening restaurants. And so, and we struggle with this, and just to, again, some comparison. Why are we opening more restaurants? I have no idea. It's exciting, it's sexy, it's seductive opening restaurants. It's a bitch running it for 30 or 40 years. I just really, it is. And that's what you're getting into, right? At least 20 years. French Champion's now 31, Per Se's 20, Bouchon's 26. You know, all together, it's like 120 years of operations of restaurants today. And, does it change my life from a financial point of view? Not really. I mean, I'm a very modest person. I don't need a whole lot, so I'm happy with where I am. So why do I open more restaurants? I think I do it because I want to make sure that we're giving opportunity to the next generation, which is kind of stupid when you think about it. Like, why do I need to do that? Why do I need to bust my ass to give you an opportunity? Like, you go out and bust your ass and do it yourself. But that's kind of where it is. So we think about opening restaurants, what kind of restaurants, and we're in the process of opening one in Montecito, California, right? Now, how does that stuff happen? I have no idea, because I wasn't thinking about doing anything in Montecito. Well, and I have friends down there. We would go down there occasionally, and every time we'd go down there, we'd drive down the beach past a building called the Coral Casino. If any of you know Montecito, you know the Coral Casino, 1936, yada, yada, yada. The Lord would always say to me, we should get that open restaurant. I'm getting under my breath and going, yeah, sure, whatever, right? Why would we do that? I have no idea. 2.5 years ago, we were on vacation in Portugal. I get a phone call from a friend in LA. Thomas, there's a guy in Santa Barbara who wants to talk to you about opening a restaurant. I said, Joe, I'm not really interested in opening a restaurant in Santa Barbara. He said, well, can you talk to him anyway? Just as a courtesy. I said, okay. So 10 minutes later, I get a call from this guy in Santa Barbara going, Thomas, I'm this, I'm that, the other thing, right? And I've got this opportunity for you. And I'm going, okay, well, what is it? And he said, Coral Casino. I said, can you hang on a second? I walked into the bedroom. I said, Lord, the guy on the phone that wants us to open a restaurant at the Coral Casino, you not believe it. That's kind of stuff that happens. But again, I hope I'm not boring anybody here. But Danielle Boudreau and I have these conversations all the time, going back to Tim Ryan opening restaurants. As a young cook, right, your ambitions are to one day, if you're lucky enough, if you work hard enough, if you're good enough, right, you'll be able to open a restaurant. And I did that, right? Danielle did that. And all of a sudden, in that period of time, right, in that 80s and 90s, that period of time, right, there was this explosion of opportunities. And so we would get seduced, Las Vegas, New York, wherever, let's open a restaurant, let's open a restaurant. So we said, as I said, we don't say no, right? That we lost the word no when we walked into a kitchen. So we opened more restaurants. You know what we talk about today, Danielle and I? God, would it be so nice just to have one restaurant? So be careful what you ask for, because it may come true.
Chef, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you for allowing me sharing some things with you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Michael, for inviting me. Thank all of you for coming. I hope I shared some insights and some knowledge with you that helps you today and maybe in the future. Thank you.
So Caleb is going to say a few more words, but we have one of someone who actually washed dishes and chefs at the French Laundry when he was 15. He's prepared food. He's our executive chef, Sean Cohen, and then Chef Sarah Keller's here as well, who's a favorite of mine. So thank you again for coming, Caleb.
We recorded all that, right? Like we're good. You got it. There's about 50 people that joined you all today on live stream, which is super cool. But I was sitting here trying to think about some whimsical thing to say from what just happened, but I can't. Well, I'm just going to have to digest that for quite a long time. Thank you so much for everything. Okay, now it's time to enjoy some food and wine. Wine and food? Food, what? We've got 6 tables behind you there that represent some of our strongest initiatives that we have going on. I do appreciate that you use the term sense of urgency. I really like that phrase. If you feel that same sense of urgency, you should go to the Oakville table in the back. We are sprinting to try and finish raising those funds to build the future of our organization. So head back there and have some chats with the folks there. We have a couple of tours lined up on the 11th and the 15th of March. If you're interested in seeing the property, seeing the vineyard, we'd love to host you. There's plenty of winery partners that are joining us as well. So as you mosey around the tables in the back, which are Paso Adelante Group, Grower Education, we have a social events table, a membership and sponsorship table, a vineyard policy table, and again, Oakville. Garrett, thanks for hosting the vineyard policy discussions. If you're interested in that, go see Garrett Buckland. The wineries, because you're all excited about the wine that's here. Opus One, Paradigm, Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, Pine Ridge, Polito Walker Estate Vineyards, Ghost Block Winery, Ziada, thank you, Karen. Palisades Canyon Winery, thank you, Felicia and Steve. Hyde Vineyards, Visa Tui Winery, Coruscant Winery, and Spotswood, some amazing wines for us all to taste. With that, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your membership. Thank you for your support. And please go enjoy the rest of the afternoon.